Some women step into WWE with a story, and some step in with pure discipline. Fitness isn't just about building muscle or looking great on camera. It forges endurance, body control, and that stubborn toughness that keeps you from folding when every little detail gets picked apart. In this video, we're meeting the names who once battled on the fitness, figure, and bodybuilding stages, carrying the spotlight pressure, brutal training schedules, and a real competitive mindset, then turning all of that into serious impact inside the ring. If you think they're only remembered for their looks, you might be about to change your mind. Let's get started right now. Wrestling sphere, go. 1. Nicole Bass. If there's one name that could walk out and instantly make a crowd freeze, Nicole Bass was that kind of presence. Not because she delivered cutting one-liners, and not because she relied on flashy tricks. Her steel-sculpted build alone was enough to trigger a reflex in everyone watching, equal parts curiosity and caution. At a time when women in wrestling were often boxed into familiar molds, Nicole showed up like a hard left turn, a true bodybuilding physique, carrying the marks of the weight room, discipline, and the price that comes with it. Nicole came from the competitive fitness world, where NPC stages don't hand out glory for free. Every waistline, every muscle peak, every sharp line is earned through months of grinding under heavy iron, strict eating, and a schedule that can feel almost emotionless. That background gave her a weapon few performers naturally have: pure presence. Even standing still created pressure, like a statement that said, "I don't need to shout for you to feel me." When she crossed into pro wrestling, she brought a clear advantage, but also a heavy shadow. Fans didn't just see her as a wrestler, they saw her as an event. And an event often gets used for quick shock value more than built into a long-term character. At times, Nicole was positioned as the powerhouse counterweight, the kind of role designed to make others look smaller, weaker, or swallowed up by the size difference. It sounds impressive, but it can become a cage. You shine too fast, and you're easier to push aside the moment the story pivots. Even if her on-screen run didn't last as long as many expected, Nicole Bass left a mark that's hard to replace. She proved that women's muscle isn't just an accessory, it can be the center of an entire image. With Nicole, what sticks isn't the match count or the minutes of TV time. It's the moment she walked out, and the whole arena understood. Some people don't have to do much, because their very existence is a declaration. 2. Victoria. Some people arrive in WWE with ready-made spotlight. Victoria arrived with something else. Discipline. Not the kind of discipline you show off in gym selfies, but the discipline of a fitness athlete, where you're measured by endurance, precision, and a level of pain tolerance that outsiders usually call unbelievable. Before the name Victoria became associated with sharp offense and eyes that looked like they wanted to tear through an opponent, she lived in the world of fitness/bodybuilding competition, where every training session is an appointment with burning muscles, and every stage is a test of whether you can stand tall under the lights. She won the Fitness America series, a milestone that doesn't come from luck. It comes from repeating the most tedious things imaginable: train, refine, cut, then train again. And when she earned her IFBB professional fitness card, it was like a passport stamped with proof. She didn't just like fitness, she belonged in the elite tier. That foundation gave Victoria something rare in wrestling: real strength, machine-like body control, and the feeling of, if I need to, I can push the pace one more notch. When she transitioned into WWE, that edge wasn't only in her physique. It was in how she moved: tight, crisp, no wasted motion. Every rush had a purpose. Every tempo change felt like she was dragging her opponent into a conditioning test, one where she already knew the answers. And the scariest part? Victoria didn't have to overdo it to look dangerous. She just had to stay on rhythm. The rhythm of someone who's used to winning through precision. That's why Victoria became the kind of wrestler you couldn't casually watch. Because behind the character was an athlete's core, trained to survive, compete to prove it, and perform to turn power into a story. For her, fitness wasn't a past life. It was the engine, what made every appearance feel like a warning. Don't mistake this for simple entertainment. This is someone who once lived on real competition. 3. Jordynne Grace. If there's one name on this list who can appear and instantly make you believe in the weight behind every step, it's Jordynne Grace. She carries a different kind of aura, not muscles built for display, but muscles forged for combat. Her bodybuilding base gave her a tight, defined frame and a level of discipline that's almost unreal. Her powerlifting background gave her the most intimidating core of all: pulling strength, pushing power, and spring-loaded explosiveness. When you live with a barbell, you learn a cold lesson. The smallest mistake has a cost. Jourdain brought that exact mindset into the ring. What makes her compelling isn't just that she's strong. It's that her strength is controlled. Watch how she closes distance, claims position, shifts her center of gravity, then moves like a calculated block of steel. Her lifts, throws, and heavy presses don't feel like showboating. They feel like the result of thousands of reps until the body reacts with precision. Even when the pace speeds up, you still see clean breathing, steady eyes, and the stubborn grit of someone who fought her own limits long before she ever fought anyone else. And when Jourdain Grace signed with WWE, it didn't feel like a lucky leap, it felt inevitable. Because for her, power was never a promise. It was proof. And in a world where plenty of people say they're a powerhouse, Jourdain is the one who walks out and makes you hear it in the impact. 4. Caitlyn. Caitlyn is the kind of presence that can shift the rhythm of an entire segment the moment she shows up. And what makes her stand out isn't just a camera-friendly face or a model-perfect frame. It's the fitness foundation that trained her to control her body the same way you control a story's pacing, when to loosen up and build warmth, when to tighten the screws so an opponent starts to feel the pressure, and when simply standing still is enough to convince the crowd she's anything but lightweight. Before she ever stepped into the wrestling world, Caitlyn had already fought for her place on competitive fitness stages with milestones that people in that scene instantly recognize as legitimate. She won the NPC John Sherman Classic, then went on to make her mark at the Arnold Classic, where you can't survive on a smile, and you can't hide flaws with a flattering camera angle. On that stage, every line is earned through training routines repeated until they become bone-deep habit, nutrition discipline that can feel almost cold, and, most important, nerve. The ability to stand under a microscope and still hold yourself like everything is under control. So when she transitioned to WWE, her advantage wasn't just how she looked. It was the weight behind everything she did. Her movement was compact, sharp, and efficient, like someone whose body has learned to obey on command. And because she'd already lived through the pressure of performing in competition, Caitlyn carried something that's incredibly hard to teach. The ability to be compared, judged, and picked apart without shrinking. She didn't need to overact to prove she was dangerous. She just had to hit the right tempo, strike at the right moment, and let the impact speak for her. Caitlyn is one of the clearest examples of a difficult switch, from being looked at to being hit. A model can live on image, but a wrestler has to live on timing, force, and flow. And that core built through fitness, discipline, control, and stubborn grit under pressure help her stay not only beautiful on camera, but believable, with real weight, inside the story. 5. Dana Brooke. At a glance, Dana Brooke looks like she was made for the spotlight. The polished look, the bright smile, the kind of energy that always feels ready for live TV. But if you dig deeper, what shaped Dana isn't glow or hype, it's discipline. The kind of discipline that comes from bodybuilding and fitness competition, where every day is a negotiation with your body. How much tighter can you get today? How much longer can you hold it? And do you have the toughness to keep the pace all the way to the end? Before she became a familiar face in WWE, Dana came through the competitive fitness world with a milestone that carries real weight, an IFBB Pro card. It sounds simple, but the meaning is blunt. You're no longer in the testing the waters tier. You've stepped into a level where everyone is serious, every tiny mistake gets magnified, and everything you bring to the stage has been calculated in months, not days. And then there's the Arnold Classic, an arena where simply standing in the lineup tells people one thing: nobody is there to sightsee. Out there, muscle isn't just a look. It's proof. That background carried straight into the way Dana approached wrestling. She had something that felt undeniably real: endurance. Heavy training blocks and strict meal plans teach you how to keep moving when your mind wants to quit. So in the ring, Dana wasn't the type who wins because everything is perfectly smooth from day one. She was the type who keeps fighting for it, keeps tightening the technique, keeps leveling up by inches, and you can feel that stubbornness in every strike, every scramble back to her feet, every moment where she refuses to let a segment become a just-fill-the-minutes performance. That's why Dana Brooke has a specific edge. She doesn't just want to be seen, she wants to be acknowledged. Not with compliments, but by proving she has a real athlete's foundation, that she's paid real prices, and that she's bold enough to turn a gym-built body into something that carries weight on TV. For Dana, fitness isn't a past chapter. It's the core that keeps whispering, not done yet. Not at the limit yet. And that's the part people remember. 6. Mandy Rose. Mandy steps in front of the camera with a kind of shine that makes people jump to the easiest conclusion. She's the one who gets pushed because of her looks. In wrestling, that conclusion is like a label slapped right on your forehead, convenient for the viewer, but suffocating for the character. And Mandy understood that earlier than most. Because before her story was tied to the ring, she'd lived in a world even harsher about appearance, fitness and figure competition. Back in 2013, Mandy started competing in fitness. Not working out for cute photos, but real competition rhythm. Training built around targets, nutrition ruled by structure, and a quiet kind of pressure, where you're expected to smile on stage while your body is running on empty. Then when she shifted toward figure, the requirements changed again. It wasn't just about being strong, but balanced. Not just defined, but proportioned. Every shoulder angle, every back line, the fullness of each muscle had to land at just right for that stage's standards. A little off and you're called raw. A little too far and you're told you've gotten too thick. It's a constant fine-tuning game with zero room for improvisation. Her results in WBFF show Mandy didn't just know how to stand there and look good. She knew how to present a physique as a skill, how to walk, how to control her breathing, how to create a landing point for the audience's eyes. And when she brought that into wrestling, she turned her looks into a storytelling tool instead of a cage. She could show up glamorous, but she didn't let glamour make her feel thin. She knew when to soften to lure an opponent into a mistake, when to harden to crank up the pace, and when to explode so the crowd finally sees it. Behind the polish is an athlete's base, sharpened early. If you had to sum Mandy Rose up in one line, it's this: she doesn't try to prove she's better than anyone with words. She proves it with habits. Habits only people who've competed in bodybuilding truly understand. Persistence, control, and the kind of grit that refuses to let stereotypes win. 7. Melissa Coates. Melissa Coates lived between two stages that most people couldn't survive at the same time. On one side was bodybuilding, where everything is measured in angles, definition, lighting, and that unsettling silence right before you step out. On the other side was the ring, where skin scrapes against ropes, impact doesn't ask permission, and looking good means nothing if you can't handle real contact. Melissa didn't choose one world over the other. She moved back and forth between both, like her body itself was the bridge between performance and punishment. In bodybuilding, Melissa had real credentials, not rumors, not hype, but the visible proof of someone who truly competed, accumulated discipline, near-clinical muscle control, and the poise of an athlete who knows she's being judged down to the millimeter. That sport teaches a blunt lesson: you can't talk your way to a win. You can only show up correctly. From keeping your back set, opening your shoulders, tightening your core, to breathing without breaking your shape, everything is drilled again and again until it becomes instinct. But wrestling doesn't give you the luxury of standing still. The ring drags you out of the perfection of posing and throws you into the chaos of combat. Opponents shift pace without warning, falls come from angles you didn't prepare for, and pain is always more real than any introduction. Melissa brought her bodybuilding foundation into that chaos in a very specific way. She knew how to use her physique like a statement, how to stand in a way that lets pressure spread on its own, then use that stored strength to clamp down on the rhythm of a match when the moment hit. What's memorable about Melissa Coates isn't just that she was both a bodybuilder and a wrestler. It's that she proved those two worlds don't have to contradict each other. One teaches you to control every detail. The other teaches you to survive when every detail gets shattered. And when Melissa walked out, it felt like you were watching someone who knew how to win in two different languages. One built on precision, the other built on grit. 8. Axana. Axana is the kind of performer who, the moment she stands under the lights, gives off something hard to pin down. Soft, yet sharp. On the surface, she carries the look of a fitness model. Clean lines, controlled presence, and a walk that makes people assume she lives on image alone. But Axana's foundation wasn't just appearance. It was a serious bodybuilding journey with clear milestones, amateur competition, medals, and step-by-step progress into bigger stages where simply showing up feels like a test you have to earn. Amateur doesn't mean easy. If anything, it's often the harshest phase. You don't have the reputation that earns you grace, you don't have a brand that makes people remember your name, and you don't have stability that lets everything run on autopilot. You push yourself through cycles of cutting, loading, heavy training, recovery, then cutting again. Every day becomes a math problem. How to keep muscle while dropping fat, How to hit the stage with the right look when your energy is already worn down. A medal at that level isn't decoration. It's proof you beat the exhaustion, the cravings, the doubt, the things that can break you faster than any heavy weight. Then came Arnold, one name that carries its own weight. Nobody shows up there just to see what happens. You stand next to bodies prepared like finished products, and every small flaw gets exposed under the lights. For Axana, that experience was like a final forge. Learning how to hold your composure while your heart is racing, learning how to smile while your muscles tremble, learning how to turn the body into a language. When she stepped into wrestling, Axana brought that language with her. She could control attention. Sometimes a single look was enough to pull the crowd closer. Other times, one sharp, decisive movement reminded everyone this wasn't someone who only knew how to pose. Bodybuilding taught her discipline. Arnold taught her pressure. And the ring gave her the chance to turn it all into a story. The story of someone who learned to win in silence, before winning on camera. 9. Bianca Belair. Bianca Belair is the kind of person who makes you feel like she doesn't just walk onto a stage. She takes ownership of it. Not by being loud, but through the rhythm of an athlete who's lived inside discipline for years. There's a rare kind of confidence in her. Not the kind that comes from being cheered, but the kind that comes from knowing exactly what her body was built through. And that something didn't come from a few workouts for the camera. It came from a fitness and figure competition background, a world where you have to turn your body into a complete presentation. The right proportions, the right sharpness, the right presence, and most of all, the ability to be right on the exact day you have to be right. If you've ever competed in WBFF, you understand what it feels like to be inspected from head to toe under brutal lights. There's no room for sloppiness. A little softness and you lose your shape. Push it a little too far and you're off the standard. Bianca is credited with achievements in that environment, and that says more than a single line on a bio. It means she knows how to deliver under pressure. She knows how to stay calm while her body is exhausted. She knows how to smile when the only sound in her head is a countdown clock. Then she stepped into WWE and brought that entire skill set with her. But instead of standing still to be judged, she learned how to collide to be believed. That's the difference. A lot of people look strong when they pose. Bianca looks strong when she moves. She accelerates smoothly, changes direction with purpose, and every burst feels like it was wired in through thousands of repetitions. No wasted flash, no extra noise, just stamina, power, and control. That's why Bianca Belair isn't just a striking image on screen. She's proof that a fitness foundation isn't decoration. It's an engine. And when that engine hits full throttle on TV, what people remember isn't only the look, it's the feeling that she can push the pace even higher, and still won't run out of air. 10. Chyna. Chyna is a name that instantly triggers an image you can't confuse with anyone else. The muscle, the aura, and that feeling like she walked out there to challenge an entire set of long-standing, unspoken rules. In an era when women's roles on TV were often boxed into predictable standards, Chyna felt like a hammer striking glass. No permission, no compromise, and absolutely no softening the edges. She was known as a pro wrestler, but the shadow of bodybuilder followed her like identity itself, something that pulled people in while also leaving them unsure how they were supposed to react. Bodybuilding didn't just give Chyna a different body. It gave her a language of power. The kind that doesn't need words, doesn't need flirtation, doesn't need suggestion. She could simply appear, and she'd force an uncomfortable question on anyone used to viewing women through a template. If she doesn't fit the box you built, where do you even put her? And that question was a double-edged blade. It turned Chyna into a symbol, but it also made her a target for judgments far more subtle than any chant or boo. Inside the ring, Chyna carried the feeling of real force. Her impact never looked like someone acting tough. It looked like someone who truly had weight, who had truly lived through the discipline of the gym, and who truly believed her body had the right to take up space. She stepped into segments with a stance that felt like a declaration. I'm not here to be background. I'm here to be the center. But the cost of being that different is that people keep dragging you back into the story of difference, instead of seeing you as a complete wrestler. Chyna didn't just fight opponents. She fought the way people tried to define her. And even as time moves on, what remains is crystal clear. Chyna didn't simply open a door. She kicked it off its hinges. And from that moment forward, anyone who followed knew this much. Someone had already stood there first, with muscle, with presence, and with a toughness that never asked for a place in the game. So in this list, who impressed you the most? And who do you think had the best physique? Drop your pics in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe to Wrestling Sphere, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss our next can't miss countdowns.